All right, guys, welcome back to Within Tolerance. This is episode 23, and it's just Dylan and I, and we've got a couple things to talk about. One of which is Dylan got his machine, a week or so ago, and he is actually making chips on it. So I know he wants to talk about that, so I'll let him take that away. And I know a lot of you guys out there were anxiously waiting to hear him talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so it's been great. Machine's up and running. Coolant is in there. One of our double station orange that we never used fits in there perfectly. And yeah, we're off to the races. I mean, I sent you some videos of tool setting. I tried to send you a video of running, like the first part that we ran on there, but it was too long. But it's just crazy fast. Like I knew how fast they were, but having it there in person, running parts, it's just, ugh, it's so cool. Everything about it right now is just. I mean, I know it's that new car thing where like everything is amazing, but it really is it's just so cool. I've talked about it on here before, but like the Kitamura has the biggest or had the biggest memory in the shop, and it was only 512 kilobytes, and we load everything over RS-232. And so like loading a 300 or 400K program took 8-10 minutes, something like that. And yesterday I ran a 1.5 megabyte program, and it took 15 seconds to load, 10 seconds. I mean,
Yeah.
like Brad and I both were just like standing there astounded. We're like, wow, that's the future of our company right there. Like no longer waiting for that. Like I would have to I mean, I would make errors too. I'd load a program for 10 minutes, run one or two tool paths, realize I needed to change something, and have to reload it again and lose another 10 minutes.
Yeah, and you have to repost.
Right. And like like that Fusion thing that we won the Fusion Cam Challenge with, each one of those letters on that, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, gear mechanism, each one of those symbols for the different cam systems took like 3 or 4 different code loads per side. I mean, they were
Jeez.
probably an hour and a half in code loading and swapping over programs, and now it would have been 30 seconds and I could run the entire program and probably increase my step over and make it look even prettier. So it's
Jeez.
just, yeah, it's just mind-blowing right now. I love everything about it. Coolant flow is fantastic to the tool. Maybe eventually I might want to figure out a coolant ring, but I don't know, being able to set tools and not have to do anything, being able to probe stuff, it's just, it's so cool to have it in my shop. Like I've used it at other places I worked. I use it at my day job, but being able to just be like, yep, that's our machine and we can go do it. It's just, it feels a little surreal right now.
Are you using the I know you're obviously using the tool Touch Off Pro, but are you using the Parts Pro much? Have you used that yet?
We've used it like the manual programs. So, you jog it a quarter inch above the corner and it'll set X, Y, and Z, or, things like that. I haven't started posting in a Fusion yet just because we've only run, I don't know, 3 pieces of code in there so far. But I'm hoping this weekend I'll have time to start playing around with it. I need to dial in the post a little more and add some stuff to it. And then, yeah, just start incrementally working my way into all of that stuff.
But overall, I mean, I guess one thing is, did you want to talk about the way covers?
Oh, yeah. So, the machine showed up. It was a demo machine, so it wasn't still in factory packaging, I guess. And it showed up, and whoever had shipped it was the last person to sign off on it. Just didn't coat the way covers in rust preventative, so it showed up rusty, which was, I mean, we were pissed off about it. Our sales guy was pissed off about it. Our tech who was there to commission the machine was pissed off about it. And like everybody was just astounded at the lack of care. Thankfully, nothing serious was rusted. Like the spindle was still oiled. The table had a slight bit of surface rust, but like it came off with some ultrafine Scotch Brite pretty easily. But the way covers were stained even after we got rid of the rust, and so they are taking care of us. They're replacing the way covers as soon as they come in. But yeah, it's those little things, and like under no circumstances would I excuse what happened, but they weren't expecting the rainstorms that they had coming across the U.S. From Chicago to Arizona. Like we had a full week of rain here, so I can only imagine it was just as bad across the country. And like the machine was all wrapped up, but just that amount of moisture in the air was, I guess, abnormal for this time of year. But it's still, it we weren't going to sign off on the machine unless it was taken care of, and it was, and so now we're back to happy.
That's good. And then, let's see, what was I going to ask you? Oh yeah, how many hours did the machine have when you got it? Do you know?
I think it had 4 minutes of cut time
Oh jeez.
and like 60 hours of on time, something like
So just
that.
like idling or something.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was at IMTS in the MST booth, so I'm sure it
Oh,
was
okay.
on all day for an entire week, but it
Yeah.
was only cutting, I think it cut one demo part or one or two demo parts and then just sat there and air cut maybe once or twice over it. But yeah, that was it.
Okay. Yeah, that's nothing then.
Yeah, yeah, it's more or less a new machine, and we're loving it. Like the high torque spindle is real. Like I have in no way gotten anywhere close to even hitting 20% of the load, and I was already double, almost, well, yeah, like double the speeds and feeds that I put in there. Like I was turning everything up to 200% because it was just, I mean, at this point, our weak points are going to be tool holding and work holding, not
Yeah.
the machine itself.
So yeah, you got to kind of plan backwards now. It's not the machine anymore.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Like I I'm really excited to start switching over some of our tools into there and getting some dual contact holders and really start to push it, and see, how far I could actually push it. It'll be really
Yeah, it'll
cool.
be interesting, especially being a 30 taper.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like we were already really happy with the Kitamura, but that thing, I mean, it's older, so it's not a brand new drawbar. It's not a brand new Belleville washers, and it just, this seems to have a little more torque and power in the spindle, and I mean the numbers support that. Like it is a more powerful spindle. So
So what's the plan for the Kitamura now?
we're gonna dress it up and fancy it up and list it. Try to get rid of it.
Like first the year, like January, try to get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean as soon as possible, pretty much. I mean, I guess January kind of makes the most sense just because everybody's going to be dealing with holiday stuff anyway.
Yeah.
But we got to get two not windows, but like there's I guess it's a window between the two pallets. It goes up and down on a pneumatic rod, and I think I told you that the original one that we had already had a couple cracks in it, and whoever had put so there's like a center pneumatic rod that pulls it up and down, and whoever had put it on last, we never checked it because it just looked fine, had put the nut on the wrong side, and so at one point it backed out and the rod went up and the door stayed still and the pallets changed and the whole thing just exploded.
Jeez.
And so we replaced it with some thinner Lexan a while ago, but it wasn't laser cut or anything. I think we hand cut it or something, and it worked. But now it's all cracked, and we've had to drill holes to prevent the cracks from running. And so we want to replace that. There's a cover over the pallet changer that keeps coolant out that we've never had. We have like the frame for it, but it was already broken, and so we want to get that cut, and then we're just gonna clean it up and get it all nice.
Yeah, that'll be good to. It'll be weird probably getting that machine out of your hair.
Yeah, well, it's like a little bittersweet. Like, it's just a machine, but like both Brad and I, it's the machine we started the company with, and so we're super happy with what we did. We know it's the right thing for the company, but like we're both, it's sad to see it go. Like we love the machine. We've grown so accustomed to it. We know it in and out and how to fix every little thing on it. And so it is a little bittersweet to see it go, but I think it's going to be a great machine. Whoever picks it up, we're going to throw in a whole bunch of solid holders, a few collet holders that we've had for a while. If anybody who's buying it wants our custom orange, because we have one that fits the palette perfectly, we'll throw that in for an extra grand or something, or $800, or whatever we end up dealing. Um, so it'll be pretty good to go by whoever buys it. And it's got a conveyor and it's got 15K spindle, and it's a good machine. I'm sure somebody else will really enjoy it for a few years to come.
Yeah, that'll be good once you get rid of that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. and then we'll get the other brother powered back up and get everything moved around a little bit more. We're gonna try and make it more like a work cell. Like right now, both of the machines are facing the front of the shop, and so there's like an alley between them that you have to walk back and forth. Whereas now we're going to try to turn both machines facing each other in the back of the shop so that they are more like a work cell. It's easier to run both of them, easier to jump back and forth, all of that stuff.
That would be nice.
Yeah, yeah, it should free up quite a bit of room too. I mean, the kitty, it takes up a lot of room, like with the chip conveyor, and like it's got a spindle chiller, and like it's big, and like it'll we'll have a lot more room, I think, once we do all that.
I keep saying it, but you got to take some video and pictures of like your current shop setup, and then especially of the Kitamura before you get rid of it.
Yeah, yeah, I've been taking a bunch of video with that gimbal that I bought, but I just haven't had a spare second to edit it together and make it look at all usable. I've been,
Yeah,
anything that has been somewhat usable, I've posted to Instagram or on my stories or something. So maybe this weekend we'll see if I've got a little bit of time. I'll throw together a couple clips. I've got some of the machine arriving, cleaning up for the machine, it being rigged in and all that stuff. So I'll put together something.
yeah, that'll be good.
Yeah. But yeah, otherwise, it's crazy. Like it's really hard to convey how fast the machine is.
Yeah,
Like I sent the video, uh, it was, it wasn't big. It was too big for Instagram, but it was small enough that I could send it over Facebook. And I sent it to a friend who's a machinist, and he was like, I couldn't figure out why the spindle kept going up and down like that. He was like, and then I realized it was tool changing, and now I'm shocked. It's like, yeah,
you gotta send me that. I want to see this video.
yeah. I might just cut the end off of it and I'll send it to you. It's bonkers, man. It really is. It's so cool. Like you saw the little video I posted that Brad took of just changing from tool 1 to tool 11, and that's like the absolute biggest tool change, like the most amount of time it takes.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll try to cut it down and send it to you because it's just so cool. Like it, yeah. I'm like a kid in a candy store right now.
Well, yeah, between that and probing, you're saving and just loading programs. I mean, that right there, you're making money on just time saving versus your old machines.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna reach out this week to our Yamazin tooling guy because he's an orange dealer, and Brad and I are talking pretty seriously about getting the orange subplate that they showed on their Instagram for the
Okay.
S700, and then maybe one or two of those smaller Delta vices because I really want to start using 0 point systems and the container program methodology that I was telling you about that I saw in Rob Lockwood's class.
Yeah, I need to watch that. You keep talking about that.
Yeah, it's really worth the watch. And like, if we had a 0 point system and we knew where all of the vices were based on those 0 points, we could have that in cam as a like template and just import stock models and part models into that, put them on the vices where they sit, and then pretty much be able to just probe stock and go. Like I wouldn't have to manually find G54 G55 or like manually position the probe. It would just know like this is my set G54 for the subplate, and here are all the vices, go,
Yeah.
which I think with probing and tool setting, that's now our last waste of time
Yep.
is finding origins. So yeah, that's from what I've heard, it's fairly reasonably priced. Those vices are pretty well reasonably priced. I've wanted a few of those anyway. I think I talked to you before about it. Like I like the big 6 inch vices for certain things, but we got lately have been getting a lot of long skinny parts. So they might be like an inch and a half wide by 14 inches. And so then
Yeah.
you got to like make super long soft jaws, or I got to move two vices over next to each other. Whereas if I had the subplate and those tiny vices, I could just move two of them to two of the locations and grip both sides of the part, no problem.
It's
Um,
funny because I was literally just looking on Orange's website at those little vices earlier today.
yeah, I think for most of the parts that I do, it makes more sense to have like a handful of those rather than a lot of larger 6 inch vices.
Yeah. And
Especially
like,
because then I can do like if I had 3 or 4 of them, I could program it as like a component pattern and have it run each instance individually, like all the tools through each one, and just run like the upper left hand corner one and check it all, make sure that it all is proven out fine, and then just run the other 3. And it's like there's 4 parts done, and like that might be an entire order.
yeah, and I was looking. They actually, I didn't realize, but they had like actual pre-cut soft jaws. So like, you don't. It's not just an op one vise.
No, no, definitely not. And like I think they even have little mini pallets too for them.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's like I said, for most of what we're doing right now, I think it makes a lot of sense, and I like the prices like compared to Lang, and things like that. Like I financially, it makes a lot more sense.
well, and I just rather support Eric at Orange.
Yeah, same. I mean, clearly we've owned 3 other Vices. Like, not the fanboy out, but I really like their stuff. I think it's really well made. It's nice that it's USA company, small business, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I like to support that kind of stuff. So yeah, we'll see. I'll update you and update the podcast once I get a quote and kind of figure out where we want to go. Because like we were starting to buy, like I had a cart full of $800-900 worth of tool holders for the brother, and I was like, well, like yeah, I want to get a couple dual contact holders, but really, like I'd much rather spend money on fixturing and work holding right now. Like I think that's a better buy for us, and it'll like tool holders would just make me feel happy, like they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, it's nice to have new stuff. Whereas like the compact vices and a subplate would actually make us money.
Yeah, I mean, unless you got some big roughing job that's a lot of parts, I don't really see the reason to get a dual contact tool holder for really much of anything, unless I don't know anything. But
Well, like we want a few. Like I think I had mentioned it here before and talked to you about it. We have a Technic shrink fit with a Diamondback rougher in there that we've
yep,
used. We got the holder for free as a demo, and we sent them a tool to get shrunk in probably 2 years ago now, and it's been through hundreds of pounds of aluminum and just keeps on ticking. And so like having something like that in the carousel, I think is what we want, and like why we want a dual contact, because it's like we know it's in there, right now, like in the kitty it's tool 19, and like tool 19 is my go-to rougher. If it's a big enough part to use a half-inch rougher on, boom, tool 19 every time. So like we'll probably do something very similar to that in the brother.
yeah, that makes sense though.
Yeah, so we'll see. But
How much are those subplates? Do you have any idea?
I don't. I've only heard like secondhand prices through somebody who said they looked into them. So until I know better, I'm not going to really like speculate on it. Um, but we'll see. Like I know they're single. I'm trying to find it right now. Their single subplate for just one vice is like $400, $500.
Oh
So
yeah, the little 0 point. I've seen that.
yeah, so that one's 549. I'm looking at it right now. And that's for a 16 by 16 and has 2 of the ball locks. And I think the ball locks on the Delta vices are different, but I want to say that I saw on his Instagram that it's also compatible with the old vices. I don't know. I need to talk to him more about it and kind of figure it out, because right now, like I wouldn't want to get more than 2 of the Delta vices, and so I'd really like to be able to like have 2 of the Delta vices and one of our 6-inch vices on the subplate.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'll update you when I hear back more and kind of talk to our Yamazin guy and Eric. If I need to, I'll reach out to Orange and see what's going on.
yeah, that would be interesting. It's funny because I've been thinking about work holding a lot, and I've been really like my idea of getting 2 pro pallet systems from Pearson. Um, for what I do, I feel like that would really suit, or I think it would just save time, and I think it would just be just easier to make some of the parts because I could have if I had 2 of these on my machine. I gotta see, I might be able to fit 3, but that doesn't mean I'd want to buy 3 right away. Um, but if I had two, I'd keep I'd keep both vices on pallets, but that way I could have, let's say, a pallet for mold making, and then I could have a pallet for like this product and a pallet for that product because I'm starting to make a couple other products that are machined, and one of them I sell is the little Lego magnets. Like I sold out of those on Black Friday, so I have to make more of those. And before I was just making like three at a time in a vise, op one and two, and it's like I can make like 30 of these at a time if I had a pallet. Um, and just being able to hot swap basically jobs based on pallets would be nice. And then any high volume stuff or semi high volume stuff for job shop, I might try to start standardizing material sizes, and then I could keep pallets and wouldn't have to keep making stuff like that.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. And I think, like you mentioned, especially for your vice, not your vice, sorry, your mold making. Like I think that having a palette dedicated to knocking those out, like that means you would be able to turn around new characters or accessories or whatever for your business way faster.
Well, and I mean that's very true. Then it's also, for whatever reason, the competitors in my space for like the small injection molded parts, like I don't know what it is, but like I'm doing more mold work for customers than I have time to make stuff for my own, like, products, which is great because they're obviously paying. And, but it's like, I want to make my own stuff. Like, what's going on here?
Right. Yeah, yeah. We've been talking about that off air quite a bit. But
Yeah. So I don't
just
know.
sounds like you're being pushed more and more towards another spindle.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I was looking at, I'm like, I'm so close. I was so close. I keep getting, you ever get those like trains of thoughts and you can't get off of it for like a really long time?
Hmm.
It's been like that with the whole like, do I go with a pallet system and kind of dedicate my machine that way, or do I get like the TRT 100? But then I've heard bad things about the TRT 100. I'd rather get a TRT 160, but then my machine technically can't do that with its weight limits. And then
What have
it's
you
like,
heard bad about the 100?
yeah, I've heard mixed feelings about it. I heard that the 160 is definitely way better, but like in my case, I can't really do that according to Haas with the weight limits and restraints.
Right. Well, I mean, I would talk to Jeff Yeti Man on Instagram. He's got one on his DT,
A 160 or 100?
a 100.
Okay.
I think it's an older model, I want to say, but I mean, he makes a ton of 5-axis parts on that thing.
Okay.
Or at
Yeah,
least he did. I
because
can't remember if he got rid of it when he got his UMC or not, but I
and
know
see
he's had one.
that's kind of the thought is, okay, if I put a 5 axis on my machine, it's really, I'm also thinking about those big aluminum parts, those clamshell parts I make.
Uh-huh.
Because if I put a 5 axis on my machine, I'm not going to want to take it off, like really at all. Um,
Right.
and so all of a sudden it goes from I can have, you know, 2 to 3 vices on my machine, like right now, to one vice. And then let's say I get an order of these clamshell parts, which I have one basically waiting for 110 pieces. I'm not going to run 110 op ones. Like, no way. Um, Especially of this expensive material. That's why I like last time when I ran them, I did op one and two. That way I was able to check the full process to make sure I wasn't, I didn't scrap all the op ones basically. And so that I'm kind of juggling like that in my head. And that's where, like, today I looked at the footprint size of the UMC 500, and I need to measure it, but it's really the height that's the only possible issue. Because the actual footprint's like almost the exact same size of my machine, which is hard for me to believe.
Yeah, that's strange. I would have definitely thought that it was bigger than your machine.
Yeah, so I need to. I mean, it's a little bit bigger, maybe like I think it was like 8 inches left and right or something. I don't know, but like I'm trying to wait because I know my HFO said in like January they might get one, and I'll go look at it. And they also have a DM2 with a TRT 100 on it. At least last time I checked, so I could kind of look at literally both my options in front of me, which would be nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I know there's a lot of push to like buy machines before the end of the year, but if you're not ready, you're not ready. Like there's no point in wasting your time, and like it doesn't sound like you have time either.
Yeah,
Between Black
exactly.
Friday and I'm sure Christmas is going to be crazy for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in any need for a machine. It's really like I'm trying to be smarter about how I make parts, and one of them being okay, if I have a pallet system, and this is where Jay's products really excel. And I mean, it's just the nature of old school vices versus a pallet. I mean, he talked about this. I actually re-listened to his podcast or the episode we did with him today, and I forgot how good it was. If you guys haven't listened to that, you have to listen to that one. But he talked about how, like, if you picture a vice and the real estate it takes up on the table, I mean, you're only really using like the back end of it. Like you're versus a pallet, you're using the full surface area. Um, and I literally went down to my machine and took this clamshell part, and like I'm like I could literally fit four of these in the space that I'm making two of them, just because the way a pallet would work. And then I saw on Instagram a way a guy was using a pallet with Mighty Bites holding this big chunk of material, and I was like, that's what I need to do, and I can make, let's see, two complete every cycle. And then that way, instead of going down to my machine every like 40 minutes, I'd go down to my machine every like hour and a half. And that's starting to where, I talked about this a couple weeks ago where like I want to go to my machine every couple hours and load parts. I don't want to be there every 4 minutes. And how can I get there?
Yeah, totally. Now, I think that, um, yeah, there are so many new or innovative work holding solutions now that like vices are great for a lot of things, but there are a lot better opportunities to um, make things more high density and, like you said, longer run times, all that stuff.
Yeah, because it doesn't appeal to me to have to load parts and go down every 40 minutes. I mean, that's just not fun. I mean, it's definitely better than every 7 minutes, but still, it'd be nice to increase that. And then, like I said, I really like the idea. I mean, you could do something similar with, like you were saying, that, what did you call it? The container system?
Yeah,
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 you could do something similar if you standardized stock size with a pallet of some kind.
right. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean the thing is like one of the underlying things is, yeah, just knowing where your origins already are, more or less.
Yeah.
So yeah, you could definitely do it with a palette. Like you could base everything off of the pins, the locating pins that those pallets ride on, even. You know,
Yeah, and just go from there.
yeah, just model everything um, in Fusion and bring it in, or bring a part model into that container program and save it out as a new one every time.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's getting interesting with the work I'm doing, because then, like I said, and we've talked about like privately, like, okay, I got an order for like 50 rush parts that are a great part for 5 axis that could basically be one and done. And it's going to take me probably a day or two to make these. Whereas if it was 5 axis, it'd take me like 6 hours.
Yeah, totally.
And
Or
it's
just
just,
even having a high density, like quick way to make them.
yeah,
Like if you had a pallet where you had Mighty Bites for your standard stock size, and you already knew that call it G54.1 or whatever, P1 through 48. You could load up all your stock, and run 10 parts that you knew were good right off the bat.
yeah. So it's just like, it's as weird as it sounds. It's like I'm almost trying to get away from like one part in a soft jaw at a time. Is just like, that's not how I want to be making parts unless I really have to. Like that doesn't appeal to me anymore.
Yeah, well, I think for the size orders you're starting to get, it makes more sense to do high density stuff.
Yeah, so we'll see.
Very cool. Well, how about you? You've been busy with Black Friday and all that. What's the news on that? How'd everything go?
So I started my sale actually early, and it was kind of by mistake, because started, let's see, this was Wednesday. So I started putting things on sale on my website, and I accidentally sent out my newsletter like a day early on Wednesday. I was going to send it out on Thursday, and people started ordering, and I'm like, I guess a day early doesn't, like, that's not going to hurt. Um, Technically, it was 2 days early, because it was supposed to start on Black Friday, but I started on the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. But it ended up turning out really well. Those first 2 days were the highest paid days out of all of them, which was interesting.
Really?
Yeah, it was it's really weird numbers looking at it.
Yeah, that's
Like
really strange, especially with
Thanksgiving
Black
was
Friday and Small Business Saturday and all that stuff.
Yeah, no, literally Thanksgiving was the highest day sales wise over Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
That's bizarre. Shame on
It's
you people shopping on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I guess people aren't very thrilled about that holiday anymore.
That's
um,
crazy.
but I mean, I'm looking at it. It's just this heaping stack of orders. I got a funny picture I'm gonna post on Instagram tomorrow, but I really appreciate the support from everyone. I mean, I was doing a lot of sales, and I mean, literally hundreds of orders. It's kind of crazy. And like, it's funny because after listening to that podcast with Jay, I'm like being all lean. I'm like, okay, why is the garbage can on the right side of the table? Put it on the center, because why do I have to walk 2 extra steps to throw this piece of trash away? Um, and like just
Awesome.
doing all these things like, oh, I'm gonna put all these bags and free stuff right here so I don't have to go in this drawer every time. And like, but like, it honestly is making a difference. I've knocked out like 40 orders, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, it's filling up a pretty big garbage bag already.
That's awesome. Is
So
most of it domestic stuff, or do you have stuff going international as well?
I would say 80% domestic, but I mean, I always get orders all over, Japan, New Zealand, Sweden, Germany, um, Australia, all over, really.
That's crazy. So how do you ship through USPS? Because I know they have pretty decent international rates.
Yeah, I do all that USPS, and I have Shopify, and then I have ShipStation, which I can just print the prepaid labels and an invoice all in one go and just drop it in the mail. I don't have to stand there in line and all that.
That's super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting to see. I remember back in the day where I literally hand wrote every order. I'm like, and I
Oh,
remember I was
geez.
all like, do I really want to spend $30 a month on the ShipStation software? I'm like, I don't know. That's a lot of money. That's like $360 a month or a year or whatever it is. But
And
like
it
now I'm
probably
like,
saves you thousands of dollars in
yeah,
time.
seriously. I mean, even with the software, it took me like an hour or so to print all these labels because I just wanted to check everything. Um, but it's definitely worth it.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
really cool. So did you have to kind of put all machining on the back burner while all this happened, or were you also making parts?
Let's see. I think this was like Thanksgiving or that Friday. I ran a mold for myself. Um, but mainly I was like just constantly checking the website, answering emails and messages, just trying to be as interactive as possible. And it seemed to have worked because I mean, compared to last year's, this little holiday weekend, I 5 times what I did last year.
That's insane. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
So I'm like, okay, I think it was worth like not going out and machining.
Yeah,
um,
yeah, it definitely was worth your time. It sounds like.
Oh yeah, and one other thing I wanted to say on the podcast, I told Dylan this, but for everyone listening out there, if you have a day job, do not burn bridges. Do not do it. It is not worth it because, like told Dylan, this was like a week or two ago. I literally got a email from my old boss, my old employer, being like, "Hey, our old machine like went down and we need parts. Can you help us?" And I'm like, "Yes, I can."
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I got material coming tomorrow for those, and he probably wants those this week. So I gotta bang out 100 little parts. But doing those in soft jaws, it's just 2 ops. I'll do 2 at a time. So I'm kind of excited just to knock those out.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's a great opportunity too. Like if they have any overflow in the future, I'm sure they'll send it your way.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting going back in there, and this time not for work but to deliver parts.
Yeah, that's really funny. I was actually it's funny you brought that up because I was just talking to my old boss Saturday or Sunday. He gave me a call, and so it's always interesting to talk to him. He's a really knowledgeable guy, and been kind of it's been interesting. Like I started there as such a young kid, like not
Yeah.
knowing anything, and like now to have my own shop and my own machinery and all that stuff. Like he's really happy with me for it and has a lot of advice, of course. So yeah, it's funny that you brought that up because I also had something similar. I mean, I didn't get any work out of it, but still,
Not
it's
yet.
pretty cool. Yeah, we'll see one day. Who knows?
Yeah. No, I mean, especially with your new machine, I bet it's probably pretty weird. I don't know if you brought that up in conversation, but
He actually brought it up because I think I've told you that I contract program for this one guy who was a friend of my first boss,
oh,
and so
okay, yeah.
I went over there on Wednesday last week to like he pretty much just like pays me to keep me on retainer, and then like I just mark off jobs as I go, and once we hit the limit he pays me again. It's like I went over to pick up some money and pick up some more jobs, and while I was over there I mentioned my machine, and so he had my boss over for Thanksgiving, and the next day or the 2 days later my boss called me and was like, hey, I heard you got a new machine. It's like, yes I did.
Does your
So
current employer like are they cool and like do they know about your little side business?
yeah, I mean they know. I've told them like when I interviewed for like I was already working there, and when they interviewed me to see if I wanted to move into engineering, I told them. I don't know how much they know of it or how much they care
Yeah.
because I just do such different work than them. But I've never lied about it. If anybody asked me, I would be very forthcoming about it. It's just not something that I'm like bragging about at work either.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like it's yeah, I don't know. I don't feel at all bad about it. I don't feel like it's conflict of interest. I wouldn't want to touch their kind of work with a 10-foot pole in my shop just
Oh,
due to all
really?
the paperwork and stuff. Like it's aerospace is a whole different thing. It's the amount of man hours you have to put in just paperwork and documentation is mind blowing. So I much prefer prototype work, and I much prefer non production work. So
Fair point. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like eventually, sure, I'd love to get some more production work or get something like that and keep a machine busy. But I I love being able to just run a whole ton of different parts and learn something new all the time and not just be maintaining old programs and updating them.
Yeah, there's kind of those different levels like which one do you want to play with?
Yeah, yeah, and like sometimes I learn a ton of stuff at work by maintaining old code, but like I don't know, I really enjoy that problem solving game of like here's some new stuff. You've got this many days to figure out your plan and turn it around and get it done. And like that's the game I love playing. So
And it's always nice when it's high pay because you know there's that reward at the end of the road.
yeah, I mean prototyping is always going to be more money than production anyway.
Yeah.
So it certainly helps for
Yeah.
sure.
And that kind of
So
goes into a question I had for you, and that I wrote it in our Google sheet here, but I wanted to elaborate on it. So, with you, you do a lot. I'd say we're pretty similar in the machine work we do. If it's fair to say, I feel like my quantities are a little bit higher, but you have more like high mix, I would say.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Um, and so like with your stuff, like how do you see in the future? Obviously, we talked about work holding, and that's part of your answer. I know it's going to be, but like, okay, you're getting let's say a dozen different parts and you only have to make a handful of each every week, like how do you plan to grow that where, not to bash on you, but you can't work yourself to death, Dylan.
Hey, you
um,
don't know me.
but like, you know what I mean? Like, how is that sustainable, and how are you going to grow at the same time?
Well, I mean, that's kind of why we invested in a machine with probing, and why we want to invest in like that 0 point system. Because like any time I can make setups that much quicker, it just means I can process more parts in the same amount of time.
Yeah,
Like now that we have probing and now that we have tool setting, it means that I can be setting 20 tools while I'm setting up the other brother to run parts. And I'm not having to sit there and set individual tools all the time. And, running parts, I know that they're going to be, the blends are going to be perfect. And probing I can use to make sure that parts come out right the first time and all that. So I think our shop from the very beginning, we've always seen as like, I mean, we didn't have the highest technology, but like investing in the best tooling and the best technology that we could at that moment to make our job easier. And really, that's how we're going to grow our business is offer a very high tech, high efficiency model to our customers.
yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, without hiring just people to run parts, I don't see any other way to do it. So, and I don't really want to do that. I mean, we've talked about it to no end on here. I would much rather hire or buy a robot than hire a person right now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially the situation you and your buddy are in. It
Yeah,
just not be
yeah,
fun to deal with another person, really.
yeah. And I mean, I think I've said it on here too that the talent pool here is not great. Like anybody who's worth their salt is making a lot of money, more than we could afford, and then the people who are under that are, there is a reason that they're not making a ton of money. Like that I've seen too many people in all the shops I've worked in that I'm like, I can barely stand around, to be around you at break, let alone have you as an employee.
Yeah, and you just don't want to even, like you said, get near those people, especially if you're going to hire them.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and like there are occasionally people that I'm like, oh, I could see me hiring them, but like it's few and far between, and I'd much rather just focus on optimizing the time that we have in the shop. I think that like once I'm at the point that I can go full time, we'll really be able to start, kicking even more ass, because like we'll just be able to take on more work. Like every time that I'm stressed about a deadline, it's not because it's not because there's not enough hours in the day. It's because I'm using those hours, half of those hours, to work at my day job.
Is that something, I know we talk about this every now and then, but is that something you're starting to think about more?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I this new machine is kind of one big key piece into starting that move.
Yeah.
Like starting to think about that. Like that was always something that Brad and I talked about, um, as like a prerequisite for one of us going full time, was that we needed to have a new machine that we could get service on, that we could get parts for easily, and the brother satisfies all that. Plus, it's brand new, so we shouldn't have any issues. And if so, we've got a warranty. Like that is a very big key piece of one of us going full time for sure.
And like you said, I mean, you're getting a lot of work recently too.
Yeah, yeah. We've only been growing. I mean, we picked up what, two or three new customers in the last few months. One of our customers is an older customer, has just been inundating us with orders, which has been great. Yeah, it's we've been seeing a lot of growth in the last probably 6 months.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting the next year where you'll be at, as far as paying off that machine.
Yeah, definitely. I've got some really lofty goals for the next year, but I think that if things stay on track, where we should be able to hit them, and get that machine paid off relatively quick. So
Yeah, then it's on to the, what is it, the M140?
yeah, well at that point, I mean now they just came out with the M200 and M300,
Oh,
so we'll
yeah,
see where
okay.
we're at by that point. But yeah, we both Brad and I still think that that'll probably be our next machine, unless some other player comes into the small 5 axis space.
Yeah, I especially with your low volume, high mix, I definitely think a little 5-axis would be awesome.
Oh yeah, like I would say 80% of the parts that I make, 90% of the parts even maybe could really benefit from even just a fourth. Like if we get that machine paid off pretty quick, we might even just invest in a fourth for the S700,
Yeah,
and then go from there. We'll see. It really it just depends on if we need another spindle, if we've moved in that time. There's a lot of what ifs between now and then, but yeah, it's really exciting for sure. What
yeah.
about you? What are your plans for growing? I mean, you talked about a pallet system or something like that, but what's your next step, I guess?
Probably, I want to say I've got a lot of potential work for a UMC 500 that I know I could probably get. Um, and my old employer being one of them that has a lot of consistent work and it's not large parts. I mean, let's see, probably 13 by 13 by an inch is the standard part for them. Um,
13 inches?
yeah,
That's pretty big
I mean, yeah, it's
compared to what you usually do, at
yeah,
least.
exactly. That's what I was getting at. But I mean, I measured everything out and I started programming it, but there's definitely some potential there. And I don't know, it's just like 5-axis, I feel like would be really fun to be playing with. And I keep hearing people say this in the machining community like, don't think about the money, like, buy the right tool for the job, get it done right, and like, think about the ROI. That's one thing Jay also said about um, can't remember what he was talking about, but when I re-listened to it today, but he's like, don't think about the cost of the machine, like think of the potential ROI. And looking back on my DM2, like I honestly would have changed my machine choice to probably a mini mill, just because of I kind of got sold on the super fast nature of the machine and all that. Um, but I mean, I've paid off my machine 70% in a year, and it's like, okay, that was with a 3-axis. What could I do with a 5-axis? Um, and so it's just kind of like, what's the ROI? If it's a year or 2 years or even 5 years, I mean, that's a pretty good ROI. So I'm starting to think, don't think about the cost, think about the potential type thing.
Yeah, for sure. There was an article on Modern Machine Shop on their Facebook or something like that today that was saying a very similar thing. Don't be afraid of the what ifs. Like, think about, like you said, buying the best tool for the job. It's like a lot of people cheap out and buy, oh well, I can get almost good enough a machine for this amount. Like, I'll just go with that and not have so much invested in it. It's like, but if you invested a little more, you might be able to make more. So
Yeah.
it's well worth it. I think you're completely right there.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wrap up this year strong. That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm trying to push hard, especially with all this Black Friday stuff. I got some big orders for machine parts and molded parts that I want to push hard, get those done, and then come January, kind of start reevaluating and talking to some of these customers and see. Because I know a couple of them really want to offload stuff on me. So then it's kind of like, okay, I need to seriously think about this upcoming year, what I want to do.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you have any sales that go on for the rest of the year, or are you kind of done? Is it just normal stuff from now on?
It's pretty much normal. No conventions for the rest of the year, and then I normally don't do any more sales because normally people buying kind of this weekend were for Christmas anyway.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, I know
So
I bought quite a bit of stuff for Christmas. Well, not quite a bit of stuff, but I got a lot of shopping done for my girlfriend. So,
yeah, yeah.
but
So it's kind of it'll slow down, I think, but December's still a good month. But I'd say November's by far the best.
okay. I mean, yeah, we've got what, 4 weeks, and then the year's done. So,
It's crazy.
yeah, I still can't believe how quickly this year has gone. It's insane.
I can glad we'll have to do like kind of a recap podcast towards the end of the year, but like I can definitely say I'm proud of how much I've learned. Like I remember literally a year ago when I got my machine, and like I was like, okay, like what do I do? Like where's the work gonna come from? And then it started happening, and then it's like, crap, there's a lot of it. How do you deal with it? And like so now it's kind of like, okay, there's just different problems to think about and different challenges to overcome, but it's all fun.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's been a really big year for both of us, I think, and lots of growth, lots of learning, which is great. And started the podcast, which was a ton of fun. I mean, I can't believe we're 22 episodes. That's what, 6 months into
Yeah,
the
half a
podcast.
year.
Yeah, that's awesome. It is so cool.
Yeah, I still do not recommend anyone to listen to episode 1.
I gotta go back and listen
You
to it.
have to. I started to. It was so awkward, but it was it's so weird to like hear us talk episode 1 and 2, like where we were, what we were up to, and it's like, wow, I've come a long ways. Like, what the heck?
Yeah, I'll definitely have to go back and listen to it because it has definitely gotten easier. Like just knowing, okay, I've got to talk for a little while. Like, what am I going to talk about? Just feeling more comfortable talking in general to like a screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun though, and I appreciate all of our listeners for bearing with us as we get our feet, on this kind of crazy, weird thing. Like podcasting is definitely a strange thing.
Yeah, it's
But
new
like,
and different.
yeah. Well, and like, yeah, it's strange having like we're having a conversation, you and I, but like there are so many people that listen to it. It's almost like having a conversation with yourself.
Well, yeah, like
Um,
picture, what is it? We have like 800 followers. Picture like 800 people listening. Like that's just weird to me, so I don't think about it.
yeah, I just can only imagine all the people yelling at their phones or their screens, like, "What are you doing? Don't
Yeah.
do that, you idiot! Like, what's wrong with you?"
But see, that's the fun part of it because like I'm so open, like I'm not a perfect machinist, like, and that's what I like about this. And so far, like everyone's been nothing but helpful. Like if they hear that I'm struggling with something, they'll reach out or they'll like comment or whatever. And it's like I'm not perfect. Like that's why I wanted to do this podcast, is because I wanted to show the growth not only in our businesses but in our knowledge and all that.
Yeah, oh yeah, I completely agree. I really, really like the whole Instant Machinist community and everybody that listens to our podcast and reaches out. Like, I've learned a ton. I've gotten a lot of help. It's definitely a good hour and a half every week that I get to talk to another machinist and not feel like I'm boring you, which is great. All that good stuff. And like we've gotten to talk to so many cool people too that I'm really looking forward to the next year of this and finding other people to talk to and more things to learn about.
And that, yeah, that's what I think it will be cool, is like a year from like now, because I think like 0 to 6 months, a lot's changed, but I think 6 months to 18 months for both of us will be really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I think we're definitely kind of hitting turning points for both of our businesses, so it'll be awesome.
Yeah. So, all right, you want to wrap it up there?
Yeah. Thanks for everybody for listening. We will announce our next guest shortly, and look for the post for that, and put your questions up for that. And otherwise, follow us on Within Tolerance Podcast on Instagram. Payton is at Hex Gadgets and BrickTactical, and I'm at Proteum Machining, or Proteum Mach, MACH. So thanks everyone, and have a great night.
All right, guys. See you next week.